Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here, and today we're looking at My Love Story, story by Kazune Kawahara, art by Aruko. This originally I picked this up because this is so clearly a shojo, and I thought I'd use it for a shojo versus shonen. But I enjoyed Volume One enough, and it gave me enough things to think about that this got graduated to earning its own review all by itself. So the basic premise of it is that this guy, Takeo Goda, is kind of like the stereotypical big strong dude from a lot of stories. So in most stories, if this guy was the protagonist, Goda would be the big hulking brute of a man who helps the handsome hero, defeat the evil bad guys or something, right? So the premise is, well, what if that guy had his own love story, which is, kind of like the same thing as Shrek, like Shrek's an ogre, but he's the hero. Somebody once told me. Oh, sorry, I did that to you, gang. But anyway, so the premise is kind of like, interesting and straightforward, but the execution is what earned this its own review. Because the characters have an internal life, they think about their problems, and they are not NPCs. I love seeing it when characters think through what's going on in their life and think through what to do about it. So the first thing I marked was just the author's comments on the very first page where they talked about the creation of Gora as kind of like Takeo, like it's even like kind of a stereotypical big dude name. And what struck out to me is that they talk about how they like hot guys and they like masculine guys, and they wanted to tell a story about a guy who maybe like most girls would look at and say, ew, his face is so big and his lips are so big, ew, Gertie, but then tell a love story about him because he has a certain kind of masculinity about him, even if he doesn't have, attractive facial features, right? And so I marked that because this is the female gaze, and the female gaze is actually a lovely thing. It's a lovely thing that deserves to have a place in stories, and I really appreciated that this female artist and female writer combo were able to tell a story about a young man where they could kind of peek into the mind of a young man and sympathize with him and actually kind of identify what it is to feel like a young man in fear of rejection by a pretty girl, right? So at a girls, you two, you are not NPCs. You know how to think about other people, including young men, and write stories about them. So, mwah, hey Bella, I love it. So, Takeo is admired by, the young men of his class as he's graduating and going to high school because he's kind of like a big, strong guy. They all appreciate him, but he's never had a girlfriend. And he kind of bags on himself and maybe has a little bit too of a defeatist attitude. And his best friend is, what's all these weeb names? His best friend is Sunakawa. So his best friend is Suna, and Suna's a pretty boy. And, so it's, why are they together if they're so different? And what I liked about this friendship is Suna actually is a good friend. So they didn't have it where Suna was kind of just a jerk, and we only like Goda. That you end up liking them both, especially as time goes on. So one of the things about Takeo is a lot of the comedy comes from just what a big oaf he looks like, and silly anime expressions. But what I wanted to say in defense of this is I think a lot of people in Comicsgate like to bag on manga and say, well, SJWs like manga, and I agree. I think a lot of SJWs like manga and read manga, but that doesn't mean that manga itself is an SJW thing. So what I liked about this is that the silly comedy has context. So the reason this whole little scene is funny is that Takeo is doing something admirable. He hears that a creepy guy has been hanging outside of the elementary school. He says, is he going after kids? Not while I'm around. And then he decides to protect the kids from the creepy guy. He's just going to hang outside the elementary school looking scary, throwing dirty glances at any grown-ups who walk by. And then he does this really intense expression, and it's a police officer. You're there. There's been a report of someone suspicious loitering at the school gate. He's a well-meaning oaf. He's very earnest. He's kind of like a little bit socially inept, but you gotta love a guy who would just stand outside his school, looking for pedophiles. I'm gonna destroy them all. Yes, what a hero. I love him, right? And just a little comedic exchange like that, and I get the character. And so from there on, it's sort of like, it's a very relatable problem. If you don't understand how girls think, how are you ever going to get the girl? Especially when there seem to be guys who just magnetically attract girls all the time. So the big change in Takeo's life comes when he sees like a creepy guy on the bus, groping a girl, and so Takeo immediately jumps into action and rescues her, and then he like punches the guy, and he has this heroic manly speech. Don't say stupid crap like that, you pathetic excuse for a man. This is a love letter to masculinity, written and drawn by two women who admire masculinity. There is no way to tell this story unless you have that appreciation in your soul. You can read this and enjoy it and say, oh, that's so problematic, all the toxic masculinity. But to write a story like this and to truly have it resonate with you, you have to have that in your soul too. And I think most people have that in their soul until they're given an ideology which says, this is bad, this is promoting toxic masculinity. That's just the thing. Over and over again, I see this appreciation for femininity and masculinity in manga. It's sort of like gender studies has kind of bounced off of Japan's collective consciousness. Now I mark this because this is the like non-NPC moment, right? So Takeo does a good thing. He saves a girl from like a sex offender, and he falls in love with her, but she obviously doesn't love him back, and so he's hurt by this. So this reminds me of like these times when, I'll see a comic go around and it'll say something like friend zoned, or I feel bad because this girl didn't go out with me. And then the feminists will say, oh, well, that's the male privilege entitlement mentality. Men think they're entitled to have girls sleep with them, if they do one nice thing. And they have a point. You are not entitled to have a girl sleep with you if you do one nice thing. But I think that feminists then use that opportunity to just express their rage against men rather than sympathize with how much it hurts for you to love someone and not feel like that's reciprocated. So what Takeo is doing here is every incel and every like misogynist who actually wants to sleep with women and doesn't understand why they don't like them needs to learn from Takeo's example. The girl I helped is really nice. That's a good enough reason to get out of bed tomorrow. And that's the end of things. So he is hurt that she doesn't love him, but he has kind of accepted that doing the right thing is its own reward, and he's not going to like wallow in self-pity because he didn't get the girl. And then what happens is we, the readers, start understanding that the girl actually does love Takeo long before he realizes it, because he's a little bit inept at reading people. And the point of a story like this is, even if you're like a big ugly dude and you feel like you're always going to be alone, you can find someone if you have the right attitude. It's not like you're just going to trip and the beautiful girl's going to fall into your lap and love you instantly. You have to have certain moral qualities that people find attractive. And this is just another scene where, because Takeo has sort of insecurity, he thinks she's in love with his friend Suna, because Suna's the handsome boy who's always gotten the girl. So Takeo decides he's going to be selfless, and because he cares about both of them, he's going to try to help them get together, right? So after looking at he's a bit inept though, and he's misread the situation. So he walks away and he kind of puts his head under the shower. Why? Why don't girls react the way I wish they would? Why won't my heart do what I tell it to do? Do I need more practice? I can't help falling in love, but it bothers people, and it's not okay to do that. This is a self-aware character. He knows he has these feelings for her, but he knows that just acting impulsively is inappropriate. So he's decided he's going to try to control his behavior in spite of his feelings and be, a gentleman and a good man to both of them, to both his friend Suna and to the lovely, what's the girl's name? Yamato, the lovely Yamato. And the lovely Yamato knows that the quickest way to a man's heart is through his stomach. And so she bakes all of these lovely homemade goods like cakes, and he loves cakes, right? And then later they make a point that she's actually gained physical strength doing this because she's doing a lot of hand mixing and hand baking. So it's like they're a couple that's meant to be. Takeo just has to like get over his sort of like masculine, his mannish stupidity, and like no man understands the way a woman thinks. So if he can just get over that, then they're gold, and they're going to be a great couple. This is where Suna is now being a good wingman for Takeo. So Takeo's been trying to match up Suna and Yamato because he doesn't get it, and Suna just explains that you're not good at reading people. And I understand what you are. All that really matters to you is that she smiles and is friendly and cute. So Suna is observant and knows what Takeo likes, even though Takeo has a very hard time getting his friend. But I love the contrast of Takeo being like this big, burly bear of a man, and then Yamato sends him like these itsy bitsy little cutesy wootsy bootsy animated texts, and he loves that they're so cute and animated. He appreciates and values cute femininity. Oh, this was so sweet. This is a whole little story about the red ogre and the blue ogre, and this shows us Takeo's insecurity and his goodness as a man and his friendship to Suna. So Suna is, has always attracted people with his maturity and his quiet dignity and grace, and he's always felt like a bit of an idiot compared to that. So he's kind of decided that he's content in his role as a good friend. This is the one like dumb moment in the whole thing. So like Yamato is walking away, and like this giant steel beam just wobbles over and is about to fall on her. So Takeo can jump in and save her with his brute strength. Like, really? Like, hey, senpai-san, what do we want to build around Japan? Let's build these giant steel beams that'll fall on people, Then we can have some romantic rescue sequences. How about that? That was like the only stupid thing in the whole manga where I thought it was a little ridiculous. But even then, they kind of like used it well. Like it could have been a bit more subtle, but he's like being crushed under this giant stupid steel beam, he wonders if he's like cursed, and then these two come and help him, right? So it's not really a love triangle where they're competing with each other. It's actually a solid friendship between two men where a girl feels interest in him, and I love that. I love that he's doing the right thing, and it's sort of like his good masculine virtue is helping him overcome the problems if he doesn't really get girls. Oh, and this, okay, so then, Suna at first you could say, oh, he's just so cold and he's such a pretty boy. Then they give him some good moments. So when he was a little kid, every time Takeo would fall in love with a girl, Suna would say, I hate you, to the girl, because the girl would always fall in love with him. And then what he reveals is that the reason he hated those girls is they would always talk bad behind Takeo's back. So he was a good judge of character, and he didn't like any girl who had bad character. So that means like his bro status is intensifying. Maximum, what's it called? Wingman. Maximum wingman status unlocked. And the other thing I liked is that they found a quick resolution. So like 2 chapters worth of manga in, Takeo and Yamato are together and they're happy together. So we don't have like 6 volumes of them just playing tete-a-tete and not getting together. We actually get to see them get together and be happy. And I think that's romantic, just for a change of pace. Okay, I want to look at this, Aruko's comments with you. Hello, this is Aruko, in illustrating a story by Kazune Karahawa, whom I admire tremendously. Yay, I'm illustrating. After taking a closer look, the art in the first chapter seems overdone. I was like, what? I was trying to portray a wonderful story. I had a lot of fun doing it. The fun part about it was drawing macho men. When I draw a manly guy's face, I make the same expression myself. How strange. She is making the face. Yamato and Sunakawa are good people, and if I had a macho guy for a boyfriend, I'd be totally happy, or a macho son would be fine too. And if I had a macho dad, that would be amazing. Kawahara-sensei is so macho for creating a character like that. So she's making fun of her friend the writer for being macho, even though they're both women. Those are the things that went through my head as I drew. Kawahara-sensei, thank you for giving me free rein to draw these guys. And to my editor, TSGWR, thank you for letting me collaborate on this story. And to all the readers, thank you so much. Grateful dance, Aruko. All right, so they have this cutesy-bootsy sense of humor, especially in these, shoujo stories, right? But the cutesy-bootsiness is feminine, and it's an appreciation of like masculine bushido. I think like the nation of Japan, because they got wasted by us in World War II, they've spent a lot of time thinking about their cultural heritage and what's important from their cultural heritage. And masculinity is one of the things they've decided to keep from their cultural heritage. And this it shines through even in what seems like it shouldn't be a masculine book, what seems like it should be a little girl's, cutesy-bootsy high school romance story. That love of masculinity shows, this was adorable, all right? So I like that Yamato she's such a cutie pie. And, it's easy to like draw a cutesy face, but to actually portray cute mannerisms is something differently. So like Takeo's like saying I love her. He's like a really big-hearted guy, and he gets all wet because he rescued a little kid from the river, because that's just the guy a guy is. It takes it off his suit, and like he's this big bear of a man. He just turns and blushes, and he like does this dopey expression as he realizes he covers his nipples. Great. It's great. It's silly humor, but in the context of a love story that actually makes it identifiable. I love it. I usually mark something if it has some. Okay. So what I was wondering is, well, what are they going to do in chapter 2 if chapter 1 wrapped everything up so well? So chapter 2 introduces a new character. I feel like they wrote chapter 1 under the assumption it might just be a one-shot, and they wanted it to be a good standalone story. And then Chapter 2 introduces some new characters, introduces like a new potential love interest who's like an older sister and much more mature and sophisticated. But Takeo is a one-woman guy, and he would never ever cheat, right? So I'm sure there's going to be lots of interesting twists and turns they can do. But they continue the theme of the first one of Takeo having a hard time understanding the mind of women, but still being like enthusiastic and completely earnest in his attempts to be a good boyfriend. So I love it. I love it. I delivered on all the over-the-top anime reactions that it needed to really evoke that sense of humor for a character like this. And I just love seeing characters who have an internal mindset and an internal struggle. So my love story, if SJWs actually cared about incels, they wouldn't just call them incels. They'd encourage them to read books like My Love Story and learn the lesson from a book like this. So high recommendation. I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. I love you guys. Bonk. I bonked my phone, but I love my patrons on Patreon, and I'll catch you later.